Ich habe Ihnen bereits gesagt, wir haben diese 3 Frauen heute bei uns, die heute die Welt bewegen. Und ich habe Ihnen schon gesagt, dass Linda Fried eine weltweit bekannte Geriaterin ist. Und alles gut? Gut. Und uns in der Geriatrie einen riesigen Schritt weitergebracht hat, nämlich, dass sie das Thema Alter vom Thema Gebrechlichkeit unterscheidet hat, also dass das Alter alleine nicht unseren Alterungsprozess definiert. Sie hat den Grundstein gelegt für Geroscience, für die Medizin von morgen, die an der Biologie des Alterungsprozesses ansetzt, und ich darf Ihnen heute später dazu die ersten Do-Health-Resultate vorstellen. Linda Fried ist neben ihrer Funktion als Dekanin an der Universität Columbia, der Public Health Mailman School of Public Health, ist sie zudem führend in der weltweiten Roadmap for Healthy Longevity. Linda Fried, wir haben gestern das Vergnügen gehabt, gemeinsam den Spind von Albert Einstein in der ETH zu besuchen. Ich wusste nicht, dass es den gibt. Und wir haben viele Fotos geschossen und sie hat mir verraten, dass sie eigentlich nur hier ist wegen Donna Leon. In ihrem Wohnzimmer in New York City steht ein Regal nur für Donna Leon Bücher. Sie ist aber auch hier, und das hat sie mir gesagt, weil sie begeistert ein Ziel verfolgt, nämlich, dass wenn wir älter werden, wir unsere Verbindungen pflegen, dass wir nicht einsam sind und was es braucht in dieser Gesellschaft, um hier etwas grundlegend zu verändern, ganz im Sinne von Frau Evelyn Wittmer-Schlumps Worten. Und jetzt freue ich mich sehr. Linda, I just said that you are the most sensational geriatrician in this world, that you made frailty a stepping stone for geroscience and how we advance into biology of aging, and how you're also passionate about having people connect and being there for each other and finding those new ways in structuring our society, and that you direct and you lead the global roadmap for healthy longevity, and that we are so proud to have you here. And as a geriatrician, that we know how much you fought for this topic. And we thank you all. All geriatricians are your fans. Alle Geriater sind Fan von Linda Fried. Und jetzt bitte ich Sie auf die Bühne. Professor Linda Fried.
Well, thank you. I am honored as well as delighted to be here with all of you and have become a passionate booster for Do Health. This is a very important gathering and part of what we could create together in a future of a world we've never been in before. And I will do my best to complement, in some ways, what one of my heroines, Donna Leon, already said. But that will be my surprise in a little while. So I'd like to talk about health and healthy longevity as the key in the lock to experience the opportunities of the longer lives we have created. Look what we've done. We have created, some people politely call it a demographic transition. I call it a demographic revolution. Here you see on this slide, human life expectancy at birth from the beginning of human history on the left-hand side of the figure to the present. And what you see is that up until about 1860, human life expectancy at birth around the world was 24 years. People could expect on average to live 24 years. And around 1860, with industrialization, improved quality of life, that life expectancy started to rise. and it continues to do so in the last 100 years. Globally, what have we seen? Even since 1950, it had risen to 45 years. By 2010, 68 years. By 2021, 71 years. And in 2050, we expect global life expectancy will be 77 years. 3 times an increase compared to much of human history. And in Europe, by 2050, we project that half of all Europeans will be 50 years and older. This is an unprecedented accomplishment of human investment and human society, and we are living a life and a world that we never had before. In fact, we have created this longevity. It didn't just happen. We did this. And it is a great success of having invested as societies. Particularly, we can see it now in high-income countries. What did it? It's an investment in the conditions that create health, through public health, through what we do together, our collective investments in healthier environments, in more education, and in poverty alleviation, created 25 of the 30 years of longer life in the last 70 years in the West. And 5 years of that came more recently from better medical care. These are societal investments we have made which have reaped amazing results. The challenge now for this next century is whether we're living these longer lives with or without health. Now, as Dr. Bishop Ferrari said, I had the privilege of leading the global commission that offered a roadmap for nations on how we might be able to accomplish this. But first, a definition was in order, and so we offer this definition of what we need to add to our longevity, healthy longevity, the state in which years in good health approach the biological lifespan, with physical, cognitive, and social functioning, enabling well-being across and for all populations. Can we do this? Now, what we're experiencing is that it's not yet happening. Globally, people are living longer lives in almost every country of the world, but with more years of ill health. And chronic diseases and chronic conditions are now the dominant issue in people's lives. Those chronic conditions include what we generally think of, chronic diseases, heart disease and stroke and diabetes and cancers, dementia, as well as challenges of older age, loneliness, frailty, falls, losing function, disability, and in fact, the underlying biological process of aging itself. And I will say that this is a long laundry list, but in fact, each of these dimensions of health or ill health are interconnected, and one causes the other, and they travel together. And we've learned a lot about who gets to live with health and longer lives and who does not. We know that these things add up across the causes, but certainly more education is protective, poverty is not. How we create a floor of social protections in society completely matters in terms of people's opportunity for long-term health and well-being. And what our own individual health behaviors are, physical activity, nutrition, smoking, alcohol use, individually and in combination, have very big impact in terms of whether or not we accomplish health and maintain it. And then there are many adverse environmental exposures which create or harm health, air pollution, toxins, and occupational risks, for example. More recently, we have learned that what goes on in terms of our social well-being also has as profound an effect. Living with toxic stress, whether we have nurturing relationships across generations and feel a sense of cohesion between generations, whether at any age, including older age, we have a sense not just of social connection and support between people, but as we get older, a feeling of engagement, meaningful engagement, a sense of value and of contribution, all shape whether or not people develop health and maintain health. And of course, whether people arrive at age 70 with health is predictive of what their future health will be. Now, interestingly, in some subsets of populations, we have done what scientists might call a natural experiment. Those of us who have been privileged enough to live with more education, more resources, in healthier environments, with the opportunity to have healthy behaviors, without toxic stress and with social connection, without poverty, are demonstrating that it is possible to live long lives with health. We didn't know that 20 years ago. We now know that. And what we've learned is that the old myth that prevention doesn't work as we get older is a myth. In fact, we know that preventing ill health at every age and stage of life matters to create one's health futures. And in fact, that people who engage in those behaviors and live in those healthier and health-producing environments arrive at old age healthy and are positioned to stay healthy. But we also know now that prevention at any age helps. That's also new news. So we've learned some astonishing things in the last 2 decades. We've learned that health is malleable into the oldest stages. In fact, we now know that half of all chronic diseases are preventable, that the prevention works at every age and into the oldest stages. We also know that engaging, as I said, in health behaviors, more physical activity, better nutrition, not smoking, and with very modest alcohol use, individually matter across the life course and into oldest stages. But if you actually have all 4 of those low risks in your behaviors at age 50, what you're doing is adding 7 to 11 years of increased health in what will be your future lifespan. So the combinations of these matter tremendously. And it requires us thinking very differently about investing in our own health across our lifespan, but also in our collective health, because much of what it takes to add health to years in this coming century has the same investment, collective investment need as did adding years to life. So these individual risk factors, we call them, our health behaviors and what we engage in matter. But I'd like to show how nations invest and how that might matter. Here's a very pretty picture, lots of colored lines, looking at cognitive ability, memory ability in populations across 7 countries or regions by age group. And what you can see is that Northern Europe in the top line, along with the US in the black and orange, at every age from 50 to 85, have demonstrated the best short-term memory compared to other regions and countries in the other colors. This has been shown to be a product of societal investment in the conditions that create better health and better cognition, not necessarily the product of any one individual's capabilities. How we invest in education as nations, how we invest in healthier environments. For example, we know that air pollution is a contributor to dementia. How we are nourishing our population. All of these things add up as societal investments, and here you can see what it turns into in terms of cognition. So the global challenge that we have is, will we stop with having longer lives, or will we collectively understand the investments we need to make to have them be healthy? And I would say I've learned that to think about health in older age as the key in the lock of experiencing the opportunities of the longer lives we've created. And in fact, it's not just us, because that key in the lock unlocks the opportunities of longer lives for all of society. And the question is, will we be able to make health span equal to our now longer life expectancy? That, I didn't make this up alone, is the health agenda for the 21st century. So why do we care about it? Well, I like to ask the question, is there a value to having long lives? We never had these before. This is a new experience. What do we get out of it? Well, certainly, I've only met a few individuals who said they didn't want those extra 30 years, and they tend to be undergraduate students who are very smart, and they say, well, it depends on whether I'm healthy or not. But for most other people, the answer is uniformly yes, they wanted those extra 30 years. And for families, the experience of having multiple generations, the richness, as well as sometimes the challenges that come with that, are in general life-enhancing. But there's another dimension that, again, is new news, which is the most optimistic thing I can tell young people about this longevity we've created, which is that we actually get better with age. What do I mean? Well, the science is now showing what perhaps you intuited, that as we get older across our lives, we develop expertise. We know a lot more than we did before. We don't lose that on the day we retire or have a certain birthday. And we have a lifetime of experience. And we actually develop abilities to use both the expertise and the life experience together. And that adds up to new capabilities that older individuals have compared to young, in terms of the ability to actually recognize very complex problems and have the skills after a lifetime of problem solving to actually, if you think that problem matters, regardless of how challenging it is, regardless of how complicated it is, regardless how wicked it is, if it matters, then older people manifest the ability to break that problem down into its actionable parts and the pressure, if it matters, to get it done, because life is short. In addition, and perhaps because of all those capabilities, as people get older, they handle shades of gray better than young people. Perhaps that's why, along with a lifetime of problem-solving experience and the ability to value both sides of an argument better, older people are better at conflict resolution than young people. In addition, they bring to these problems a sense of uniting the ability to make decisions in the face of ambiguity with values about what matters. And a crude sense of what we call pro-social behavior. That as people get older, this doesn't apply to everybody, you're not guaranteed. But in the main, as we get older, people become more generous to others. That's what we mean by pro-social behavior. No? It's not for everybody, but in the main. And that generosity is accompanied for many people as they get older with a trait we call generativity. The desire to know that your time on this earth actually left things better than you found it in some way that you feel matters. This sense of generativity sometimes is called a sense of wanting to leave a legacy. But part of human development in the last parts of life is to ask oneself, has one done the things that you think will live on beyond you? All of these add up to a set of capabilities, if you put them all together, a package associated with the longer lives we now have that we have never seen before in the history of the world. And a package that 20, 30, and even 50% of the population will have in coming decades. What could that mean for the well-being of society if we learn how to enable all of us as we get older to use those capabilities, individually and potentially even together? Because the together part, if what we want to do is solve big problems, often is the linchpin question. So I hope I'm bringing you good news. I think it's the best news I could give to young people, that they have a lot to look forward to with longevity. Because aging, we now know, brings its own goals and its own assets. And we know that we have a huge gap in every society between the desire and capabilities of us as we get older and our ability to really use them in the ways we think could matter and to be valued and seen for what we bring to that table. So as was mentioned, I had the privilege of co-leading with Dr. John Wong from Singapore, the U.S. National Academy of Medicine's Global Commission, which worked for 4 years to create for nations a global roadmap for how we together invest in and create not just a world of longer lives, but a world of healthy longevity. And we offered a vision that the evidence now shows, and this is also new news, that it is possible through both our individual behaviors and our collective investments to add health, more health, to our lifespan. And that if we do that, all generations could benefit from that increased health if we actually also address the barriers to us as we get older, being able to fully make the contributions that would bring meaning, purpose, and generativity to us in the second half of life. Interestingly, what we are now learning about the assets of getting older are direct complements to the assets of the young. So what if we designed so that we could solve these problems of our present and future together and harness all ages and the capabilities each brings? What will that require? Well, it will require recognizing that we are living a longevity we never designed for. We have not designed societies for longer lives in the main, and it will require a vision of new social infrastructure to enable people to live meaning and roles and purpose that they want, to do it together, to design out loneliness and design in connection. We will need new physical infrastructure for longer lives and for the kind of connection that we want. And we will need, in fact, new health systems to deliver health across longer lives. And finally, an investment in transforming what I would call transforming our human capital of the capabilities of older age into the social capital of what we can accomplish together. Now, the U.S. National Academy of Medicine put this all together into this complicated picture, but I will simply say that if we invest in the green circles, in the transformed systems that we need, in health systems and social infrastructure, our physical environment, and what the possibilities are if people want to work longer or to volunteer or to contribute in other ways. If we transform for the longer lives and capabilities we now have, we can accomplish healthy longevity. We can accomplish well-being for both individuals and for all of us in society, and produce a whole new era of human, social, and even financial capital in the process. But it has to be built on a social compact that fosters equity and social cohesion. So I'll end by saying a few things. One is that the evidence is now very strong, as well as being very new, that we can create healthy longevity. We need to invest not just in individualized medical care, but also in the conditions for populations and how we live and how we enable people to live. We can provide the basic security for individuals, but we can also add to that the kinds of intergenerational connection and communities that are ones probably that we need to build as a product of our imagination for a world we never had before. And we can, if we address and solve our intrinsic ageism that blocks our ability to see the assets of longer lives, if we can get over that, we can actually build to enable people to use those assets and for society to see the benefits. So the implications of this would be that by increasing healthy longevities, we can actually diminish the risks in terms of the burdens of its converse of unhealthy longevity. We can unleash the potential of our longer lives in ways that can benefit both individuals and all of society, and experience what some are calling a longevity dividend along the way. The converse is the cost of inaction. If we stay this course that we are living for a world that was not designed for longer lives, we will have what we're seeing around the world, more people living with poorer health and dependence for more years. Gross domestic products that are lower than they would be with better health and full inclusion of older people. Increased fiscal burdens on governments, increased financial burdens on individuals and families, and lost opportunities for people of all ages, and lost opportunity for societal flourishing that could come because of longevity, if we could see the potential. So we have created long lives, and what I'd like to end with is to say to you, now we get to build the next chapter. The next chapter is a century's worth of new kinds of vision, new kinds of investment to build the opportunities of the long lives we've created in ways that can be experienced by all ages and make it possible for the young as well as the old to see that each gets to thrive because of longevity, as does society not despite it. Thank you so very much, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Dear Linda, dear Professor Fried, it was such an honor. I don't know if you realize, but this was the future. We heard from you. No, I should say this in German now. Is it okay?
It's okay.
It's okay.
Then I won't.
Ich fasse zusammen. Linda Fried hat uns einen Weg in die Zukunft gezeigt, hat uns die Hinweise geliefert, die wir nun unbedingt umsetzen möchten, dass ältere Menschen ein Paket an Talenten haben, die unersetzlich sind für eine Zukunft einer modernen, älter werdenden Gesellschaft und dass wir das anhand neuer Daten, die uns zeigen, wie wichtig und wie effizient die Veränderung von Lebensstilfaktoren sind, dass wir das auch erreichen können. Ich darf auch sagen, I will say this also then in English, wir werden, und das ist quasi die Zukunft unserer gemeinsamen 14 Jahre, die Sie uns alle inspiriert haben mit neuen Fragestellungen, mit Ihrer Teilnahme in unseren Studien. Wir bauen einen Campus für gesunde Langlebigkeit in der Schweiz, mit internationalen Menschen, die uns schnell voranbringen. Und ich darf sagen, Linda Fried hat das Angebot akzeptiert, uns zu unterstützen. Ich weiß natürlich warum, weil sie jeweils auf ein neues Buch von Donna Leon hofft für ihr Regal. This is a new book. This is a Christmas, antique Christmas decoration from Basel.
Thank you.
This is chocolate, and this is vitamin D and omega-3. Linda, I said that I convinced you, as this is the team that inspired us for 14 years to advance in healthy longevity, that we built a Swiss campus for healthy longevity, and that you will help us with that.
I am so honored.
And I have one more thing. Linda, there is someone in this audience who helped me on my way becoming a geriatrician. He's also the mentor of Reto Kressig, and this is the first chair of geriatrics in Switzerland who built Basel as the first geriatric university hospital and who built the first memory clinic in mainland Europe. Ich habe zu Professor Fried gesagt, es gibt jemanden im Raum, der mir sehr wichtig ist, weil er der erste Lehrstuhl ist für Geriatrie in der Schweiz. Er hat die erste Memory-Klinik auf Festland Europa geschaffen und ich möchte ihn ganz schnell auf die Bühne bitten. You can meet him, he's here. Front row, Professor Hannes Stähelin. Hannes, come!
My honor. Yes.
Yes, it's a good friend of mine.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
So Hannes, for helping me in geriatrics and making this historical moment with Linda and you and all of you possible. Also, antique Christmas delight from Basel.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Linda.